minutes! How? But anyway, the COVID vaccine. That's not what I'm going with. Gorgum could not find two babies that were born on the exact same day under a freaking solar eclipse. Yeah, this may be considered by fans to be the darkest entry in the Showa Kamen Rider. That doesn't mean it doesn't have some stupid moments. Or silly ones. Hey, no show is perfect. But how did the two get captured? Well, it turns out Kotaro's real parents died, and don't remember how. And so Nobuhiko's father adopted him, raising the two as brothers. And it turns out he was indebted to Gorgum because they helped him with his research. But thankfully, unlike most parents who are indebted to evil organizations, their father actually had a spine, as he was able to interrupt the process of as he was able to at least save Kotaro from being turned into a full Century King. But Kotaro was not able to save Nobuhiko. And so, to save his brother and stop Gorgum's machinations, he vowed to use his new Century King powers. I just realized. The being that transfers the power to those who has the two King Stones is known as the Creation King. What Kotaro and Nobuhiko become are Century Kings. Yeah, that was my bad. But anyway, he vows to use his Century King powers to stop Gorgum and rescue his brother as Kamen Rider Black. But now let's go over Black RX's plot. But I'm going to need to go into some spoilers for the finale. For the finale of Black. You see, Kotaro's adopted sister and Nobuhiko's girlfriend thought he was dead. And as a result, in order to spare them the danger of, this oncoming war, he asked them to leave Japan. But eventually they find out he is alive somehow. I don't know. And Nobuhiko's girlfriend wants to return. However, Kotaro's adopted sister reminds her of the promise that she made. Do they eventually return? It's never said. But my personal headcanon is that after Black RX's finale, they eventually did return to Japan, or Kotaro contacted them, give or take, and they were eventually all reunited. But that's besides the point. However, after finally the Battle of the Century Kings ending with no real victor, I should mention what their Century King names are. Kotaro became Black Sun, hence why he's called Kamen Rider Black, and Nobuhiko became Shadow Moon. Also, I like the designs. Kotaro's rider form, going into spoilers before we actually get into the form, is a more organic leather, while Nobuhiko's is the inverse, being more technology based. It's a nice touch that they could have just made Nobuhiko's Century King form just maybe like a silver version of Kotaro, but unless you're reusing some suits with minor alterations, this is what good stuff looks like. And you could consider Shadow Moon the actual first prototype of Dark Riders. Dark Riders, to get off topic here, were originally a suit copy of a regular Kamen Rider, but with some minor alterations. Usually the suits being dark colors, or in some cases having a similar theme to the rider, but being completely different. My personal favorite Dark Rider design is My personal favorite Dark Rider design is Dark Kabuto. The regular Kabuto had red and silver, had red armoring, bright silver leg armor, and blue eyes. Dark Kabuto had a darker silver leg armor, darker body armor with silver linings, with circuitry that kind of look like, with lines that kind of look like circuitry, and yellow eyes. Again, that's just me. But in more recent years, Dark Riders have but in earlier years, Dark Riders were usually exclusive to movies. But in some cases, and in more recent years, Dark Riders with some of them still being palette swaps. The most current incarnation I can think of is Kamen Rider Gem from Excited, which is a personal which is in my top 10 favorite Kamen Rider series, so I do plan to go over that eventually. But in any case, Kamen Rider Gem is, to my knowledge, currently the only rider that has a dark color, that is basically a dark colored version of the main series rider. Again, go into more depth of Kamen Rider Gem and those other riders when we actually get to the series. But again, that's currently neither here nor there. So yeah, Kotaro eventually does defeat the Creation King, and with Nobuhiko giving him his weapon, with Nobuhiko, whose memory returned but was far too injured for Kotaro to save him, gave him his sword, which allowed Kotaro to finally kill the Creation King, ending the cycle. However, it's a bittersweet victory, with Kotaro losing his adopted brother, who he spent most of the series trying to save. But he sends the sword to the afterlife, and honestly, I bet he's in hell in order to help his adopted brother fend off. But Kotaro was alone. As I mentioned before, his adopted sister and Nobuhiko's girlfriend left the country, so they wouldn't be in danger. So the series ends on a bittersweet note, as Kotaro rides alone. And this is where people complain about the shift. As in Kamen Rider Black, Kotaro seems completely fine. Yeah. Yeah. This was one of the major because of Black's popularity, the people at Toei decided, hey, let's make a sequel series. Which was a good call, except the sequel series did a complete 180. Now, originally, it was implied that the universe sorry, where was I? Oh yeah. Oh, dang it. That the timeline Black was in did not have the original Kamen Riders, which later turned out to be BS, as the Kamen Riders appear near the end as the original show of Kamen Riders appear near the end of the series. But and this paradigm shift of going from serious and dark to happy-go-lucky was a shock for many of Black's fans. And it wasn't entirely its fault. At the same time Black RX was appearing, there was a Kamen Rider parody called Kamen no Rider. While Kamen Rider parodies aren't that out of left field in some cases, this one was more damaging, turning off many viewers from tuning into Black RX's story because it depicted Kamen Rider as just silly kid stuff. As a result, aside from, of course, from being Black's fans, who I guess some of them still tuned into because they didn't care for the they didn't care for the paradigm shift, they just wanted to see the story go on. And as a result, Kamen Rider was cancelled after Black RX. Also, there's a debate going on if Black RX is considered the last Showa or the first Heisei entry. For those of you who don't know, going into Japanese culture here, the era usually changes when the current Japanese emperor steps down. I just happened to be in while watching the final Kamen Rider series of the Heisei era, Kamen Rider Z-O, which I did make a video on, but I wasn't happy with it, but I plan to make another one of it, hopefully better. Hang on. Sorry, guys. The emperor for the Heisei era stepped down, allowing the new emperor to name the Reiwa era. But since this was going to be the last Heisei Kamen Rider series ever, it just kind of worked out. Or they did their research. I don't know. Point is, a new era is announced whenever a new new Japanese emperor plans to take up the throne. Sorry, I'm just really stuffy today. Sorry if it's gross. But in any case, my personal theory is this. Is that and kind of confirmed with CO. Because Black RX premiered in the Showa era, but it was still going on where the Heisei era started, I still considered a Showa entry because it depends on where it starts. Because since it started in the Showa era, it was still around when it was still around that time frame. So yeah, I consider Black RX the final Showa entry. But let's get into Black RX's plot. So, a couple months or weeks, I don't know, after Gorgon's attack, Kotaro's found happiness once again. Actually getting a girlfriend this time. Nice, dude. But in any case, a new enemy comes from beyond the dimensions. I think I just made a Yu-Gi-Oh reference. But I digress. Anyway, this is an advanced invasion force for the Crisis Empire. What's the Crisis Empire? Well, they come from another dimension that's similarly close to Earth. However, their world is now toxic, and they're running out of resources. As a result, they set their sights on Earth, sending scouts to monitor the planet until the invasion was ready. and despite being considered dumb in their repetitiveness and stupidness, they actually had their spies study Kotaro's power. Now, why can't they just live on Earth instead of trying to invade? Well, because of the fact that most of their people, without going under certain modifications, can only live in a toxic environment. So if they want to survive on Earth, they have no choice but to make the Earth toxic. Except I found a flaw. Because when they sent their spies here, they underwent treatment in order to survive on Earth. Are you telling me that they can't just do that on a massive scale? In fact, if you came to, I don't know, the world leaders and talked about, hey, we sent spies here for a year, but we realized that some of them actually lived in peace. Could you help us modify our entire civilization so they can breathe Earth atmosphere too? Sure, it would take some time, but eventually you would get the help you're looking for. But I digress. Anyway, they try to convince Kotaro to join them. And since Kotaro's a Kamen Rider, that's a big no-no. So they destroy his King Stone. That I mentioned okay. This is where we get stupid. They actually destroy his Henshin belt, which is not the source of his power. The source of his power is his King Stone that I mentioned earlier. But apparently they're made of stupid. But in any case, after destroying the thing that makes him transform, which again is the King Stone, which he can still transform, but I'll get into that when we actually go over the forms. They send him out in the pathways between dimensions. However, something strikes Kotaro, which allows the King Stone to absorb that energy and transform and upgrade Kotaro's power, transforming him from the Black Son of Gorgum into the Child of the Sun, transforming him into Kamen Rider Black RX. Yeah, I do not regret doing that. But now that we finally got all that out of the way, thank God, let's go into his forms. First is his Bata Man form, or Grasshopper Man. Now, this isn't completely out of left field. Ignore that sound. As he was made to be a mutant. However, we only see it once in episode 1. And, hang on, delete. And as a result, we only ever see him when he transforms into black. With rare exceptions. But before we get into his actual transformation, let's go into his main transformation item. This is the Vital Changer, which allows him to transform into black. And this is Kamen Rider Black himself. As you can see, he is very organic, which is what I was talking about earlier when I went over the comparisons to Shadow Moon. Now, normally I don't read Kamen Rider points. I don't read those suit designs for Kamen Riders, but they all do serve a purpose. But whenever Kotaro transforms, steam emerges from the gaps in his armor. This turns out to be extreme heat, which Gorgum actually tried to exploit in multiple plots to prevent Kotaro from transforming, so that they could easily kill him and take back the King Stone. Look at the first video before it stopped on me. The one that personally comes to mind for me is that when using a mutant to suck all the power out of Tokyo, after Kotaro transforms near one of them the first time, the extreme heat that comes out of those gaps causes the cocoon to explode. Now that is how you use aesthetics in the plot. I love it. But anyway, let's go over his suit design. First is the alert point, which is a red device, i.e. that red stripe I showed you in the image that's covered by that silver bit on the top of his forehead. That sends him an alert when there are monsters nearby or an attack is coming. Next is the multi-eye. Multi-eye is basically his cheat sheet, which his eyes then glow, allowing him to see a monster's movements or detect their weaknesses. To pull an example, Kotaro was facing a turtle mutant that had the ability to retract its head and limbs inside its super tough shell. But however, using his multi-eye, Kotaro was able to find out that why he can't attack his limbs, because apparently there are little shields in there, The head is still exposed. So after Kotaro attacks it, retracting its head and limbs once again. Kotaro punches in the gap punches in the area where the head slides in, allowing him to stun long enough in order to use his finishing move. And next are the centroneers, which are triangular structures on both sides of his head. When using them, they glow purple, which enhances his hearing to superhuman levels. I bet he could hear a tree falling in the woods. Get it? Moving on. Next is the rider sensor, which are Black's antennae, which allow him to detect monsters that are moving at super fast speeds. Next are the power stripes, which are black striped bands on his neck and wrist, which glow to repel any monsters, sticky fluids, or goo on his body. Wait, what? Ew, nasty. Next we get into the strengthened skin, which is basically the rest of his suit. First of the strengthened skin is the Ripless form. Ripless form? Yeah, it works for me. Which is the grasshopper-like exoskeleton that protects Black's body from attacks. Next is the strengthened muscle, Fiberon. As a result of his cyborg surgery, his brown muscles under his strengthened skin, which gives him strength that is 30 times of a human. Now, his main combat techniques are the Rider Punch and the Rider Kick. Which, using his Kingstone, charges his hands or feet into a again, using his Kingstone. Well, yeah, let's go into more specific. However, some monsters' hides are too strong. Like when Kotaro faced the crab mutant, his Rider Punch had basically no effect. So Kotaro trained himself to find a new finishing move to kill the monster. And while he was training, he was able to discover a more powerful version of his Rider Punch. He also later found a new variation on his Rider Kick, somehow. Now, it usually goes hand in hand. First, Kotaro would use his Rider Punch, and then his Rider Kick. Now, I'm under the impression, and again, my personal theory, is that his Rider Punch is stronger than his Rider Kick. That's because, fighting-wise, in his original Black form, Kotaro was more of a brawler. As a result, it would make more sense that his Rider Punch would be more effective. But, to the way he used them, my best guess, personally, is that his Rider Punch is his Rider Punch is strong enough to stun his enemies, but is a lot slower. His Rider Kick, while weaker, is a lot faster. So, yeah, while it does seem silly that he doesn't use his more powerful technique, there is some logic behind it. Again, my personal opinion. Ah, dang it. Next is the Dragon Shoot. Now, this move is only seen in episode 16, where Kotaro and an Interpol agent named Taki are trying to stop a Gorgon from getting a super enhanced version of a quartz crystal in order to cause massive earthquakes. Why? I have no idea. But anyway, Taki threw the super enhanced quartz crystal, and Kotaro charged it with his Rider Kick, which turned into a melee weapon that destroyed the antenna of the mutant Kotaro was facing at the time, which stopped him from performing his regular rider punch and kick combo. After destroying the part that was preventing this, he was eventually able to perform the classic rider punch, rider kick, etc. Anyway, his most powerful technique is that of the King Stone Lash. Now, by simply standing out King Stone Flash and placing his hands on his Vital Changer, he can release a burst of energy. Now, there doesn't really seem to be any downsides to it, so let's move on to his vehicles. His first vehicle, excuse me, sorry, is the Battle Hopper. Now, this was created by Gorgum and is a living machine, more or less. Well, it hasn't really achieved full sentience in Black. And Kotaro wrote it because it was made to be written by a Century King. And it would become Kotaro's most powerful ally. Well, it does lack battle capabilities. It is extremely quick, allowing for Kotaro to pursue Gorgum's mutants faster, and it's more lightweight. However, in the original series, the Battle Hopper did not have a happy ending. During another battle with Shadow Moon called out for Battle Hopper. Now this may seem out of left field for some people, but you also have to remember, Shadow Moon is also a Century King. And Battle Hopper was made to be a Century King, be written by a Century King. As a result, Battle Hopper being taken over by Shadow Moon is not a left field. However, Battle Hopper, because of all the time it's bonding with Kotaro, was eventually able to resist Shadow Moon, throwing him off. However, Shadow Moon eventually damaged Battle Hopper. Now, Battle Hopper throughout the series has been shown the ability to regenerate itself. However, Shadow Moon damaged it beyond its own ability to regenerate. In its last moments, it finally gains full sentience, gaining the ability to speak, thanking Kotaro for all it's done for him, before it eventually dies. Now, Kotaro would later gain a second motorcycle, the Road Sector. Now, the Road Sector, which lacks the speed of Battle Hopper, makes up for being stronger. The Road Sector lacks the speed and mobility of Battle Hopper, but the Road Sector makes up for it in being stronger and more durable. Now, it also has an attack shield mode, which Kotaro usually uses when the Road Sector has the ability to travel has the power to travel to the speed of light, which Kotaro either uses which is known as the Sparkling Attack. Yes, seriously. Anyway, this allows Kotaro to either move past Gorgum extremely fast, or allows him to run into a Gorgum mutant. It tends to vary. Now, there's a theory on Battle Hopper, but I'll get into that when we go over Black RX's forms. Speaking of which, let's go over his new belt, as the Vital Changer was later upgraded into the Sunriser. Yes, seriously, it's like two eyes staring into your soul. To me, anyway. So weird. But in any case, this allows Kotaro to access his new This allows Kotaro to transform into Black RX himself. Handsome devil, isn't he? Now, if you're wondering about the green, this is because, I look over on fellow Toko reviewer Deshinta. He does a very good in-depth analysis of Black RX's series. Something I lack because of my attention span. So you guys are more interested into why some of his parts are green? I go take a look over at his show. But anyway, Black RX's is Kotaro's new balanced form. However, he lacks neck movement because of a giant panel that protects the back of his neck, which restricts eyesight. However, it makes up for this in his Now, again, he has all the same abilities as Black RX, but now they are upgraded. And his macro eyes, to compensate for the lack of neck movement, are now bigger, allowing for greater view. If you want an example for current media, think the original Batman movie. You know, with the cowl being in a position where it restricted his neck movement. So think that. Anyway, Kotaro then gains a new weapon, the Revolved Cane, which is basically a lightsaber. This is somewhat of a problem with most fans, and I would have to agree. The Revolved Cane is not a melee weapon. While Kotaro does gain a melee weapon later down the line, it's for another form of his, which we'll get into a little later. However, writers who never seen Black RX before don't realize that it's just for the finishing move. This is also another problem that writers, with some unless there are two different versions of Kotaro, which we actually see in Kamen Rider Decade, which I will never go over because that show is crap, more or less. Again, maybe later, or never, I can't say. I was saying, oh yes. Unless there are two completely different versions of Kotaro, he will switch back and forth between Black and Black RX. Which is not what happened because Kotaro lost the ability to turn into Kamen Rider Black. Black RX being his new permanent form. But I digress. Anyway, his finisher is that of the Revolve Crash, where he literally stabs his energy with his blade of light before doing a slash attack. Similar to how now Kotaro is taking energy from the sun. There's actually an armored part near the middle of his chest, which is known as the Sun Pass, which Kotaro can keep fighting if he's in an area with light or sunlight. Yes, he is a green-powered superhero. But now I gotta get off topic again with one thing. You see, in the early episodes of the series, it was specified that Kotaro could not transform if he was not in direct sunlight, or at least there was sunlight in the area. Like most things in the show in the early episodes of Kamen Rider Black RX, it was dropped. Which I think is a good thing because because we can't have awesome night fights. Well, fights at night, obviously. However, Kotaro's not the only one who gets an upgrade. We also get the return of an old friend. The Battle Hopper is also reborn, becoming Acro Battler, increasing its already impressive speed, while also increasing its power. But Kotaro would also gain the first Rider car, which would not be seen again until Trideron for Kamen Rider Drive, another series that is my personal favorite, that's in my top 10 favorite Kamen Rider series, and I plan on getting on eventually. Now, taking something from this Shinto's review, again, go to him for the full theory, is that Kotaro disassembled the road sector in order to build the Rideron, which he got during an episode where he got transported to the world that the Crisis Empire originally comes from. And he got the plans from one of the natives. And then there's the whole stupid area. But I digress. Again. But in any case, Kotaro would later gain new. But anyway, Kotaro would gain new finish. Oh, his multi-eye also got a name change. That being the macro eye again. And similar to his macro eye, it allows him to see. And it has all the same functions as the original micro eye, but with new features, which allows him to see behind obstacles and inside enemies' body. I call that intrusive, but what you gonna do? Now, in any case, Kotaro again gets upgraded to his original Rider punching kicks. His black rider kick becomes the RX kick, with the difference being that the original Kamen Rider kick for Kamen Rider Black was a single-footed kick, but the RX kick transforms that into a double-footed kick. The Rider punch is pretty much the same. But if we're going with double, if we're going to add an extra body part, wouldn't that make it a double punch? That would actually be a RX double punch. Oh, never mind, I'll shut up. And now he gets an upgraded version of the Kingstone Flash, which now has the ability to break the illusions of enemies. But the Crisis Empire, because of its multitude of different monsters, cannot be Kotaro's Deus Machina like it was in Kamen Rider Black. But in any case, let's get into Kotaro's new... But anyway, let's get into Kotaro's new forms. Which happens whenever Kotaro feels a strong emotion. These came into a string of episodes where the family that Kotaro was staying with his girlfriend's family, the youngest daughter, was kidnapped through a crisis plot. And through a string of events... Sorry guys. Through a string of events, Kotaro gained two new forms. First is RX Robo Rider. With the Sunriser also changing, giving it more of a gearbox look, as you can see with those spinning gears. Now, this is Kotaro's power form. If you guys have seen my Ultraman reviews, I'm going to sort of apply the same logic here. Well, it lacks the even balance of Black RX. It has an increase in power, strength, and endurance. Endurance with a lack of speed, agility, and mobility. And those orange parts, similar to how Black RX's Sunbask allows him to absorb solar energy, the orange parts allow Robo Rider to absorb fire energy. But because of the overall new strength, power, and endurance, Kotaro is a lot slower, his movements becoming more robotic. But in any case, Battle Hopper also gets a new upgrade. The Roboizer, which, similar to Black RX, trades off his normal speed, agility, his speed, mobility, and sometimes agility, because boy can that thing jump high. Jump high when Kotaro's riding it, for power, strength, and endurance. So while it is slower, it can go longer. Anyway, Kotaro, in this form, Kotaro also gains the full tech shooter, which, unlike the Revolve Cane, which should have been called the Revolve Blade, in my personal opinion, he can use outside of his finisher. Kotaro being the first rider to have a rider gun, which is the first version of his new which, like I mentioned before, is used outside of his finisher, and it has the accuracy and power of that of a sniper rifle. Its finisher is the Hard Shot. Which is a powerful blast, which is powered once again by solar energy, which allows him to destroy enemy in one blast. Now, and as I'm reading from the wiki here, apparently also its range is limitless, and it never misses its target. Now, if I didn't mention this before, Kotaro's new forms come from his emotions. This one being sadness when he thought the girl he was trying to save accidentally died. Him dubbing himself the Prince of Sadness. But anyway, let's look at Kotaro's last form. This is Gel Rider. Bio Rider. Once again, the Sunbath's changing color. Again, the Sunbath's changing to, I don't know what you would call that. A sink? What do you guys think? If you guys know what this looks like, please let me know in the comments. But in any case, this is Kotaro's speed form. Well, because of its weaker armoring, then what the? Hang on. I do not remember opening that. Sorry, guys. Because of its weaker armoring, it lacks power, strength, and endurance, but it makes up more in speed, agility, and mobility. Now, in this form, Kotaro is known as the Prince of Anger! But, again, because of the lack of armoring, it leaves him vulnerable to more powerful attacks. But he makes up for this with Gel form, which allows Bio-Ride to basically turn into liquid that no one can touch. Though they have tried, and we also learned that Bio-Rider has the ability to speed up poisons in his own body, which was very useful in one episode where a monster was tricking, which a monster who bited people to think they were flying squirrels and leap to their deaths. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Japan has a high suicide rate. I'm not getting into that. That's one can of worms I will never open. Never. But in any case, after being bitten, Kotaro uses Bio-Rider's power to speed up his body's healing process in order so he could create an antibody, which he then transformed into liquid, because remember, he has water powers. Again, Prince of Anger! Which allowed him to create an antidote. Now, let's get into Kotaro. Now, once again, Battle Hopper gains a new form. This being, hang on, the Mach Jabber. Similar to how he trades off, similar to his Roborized form, as he trades off power, as he trades off his more balanced capabilities for power, strength, and endurance. In this form, Bellhopper gains an increased speed, agility, and mobility, which makes this the fastest of his forms. But in any case, let's go over the last weapon, the Bio Blade, which, similar to the Revolve Cane, which I still think should have been called the Revolve Blade, is the signature weapon for Bio Rider. However, unlike the Revolve Cane, he can actually use it outside his finisher. Now his finisher is the blade will coat itself in light energy, which allows Bio Rider to form the Sparkle Cutter attack. Freaking sparkles, man! But yeah, that's pretty much it for Kamen Rider Black and Black RX, which sadly went on a bit of a burp than anything else. Again, the people who worked on Kamen Rider would try some films in order to get the series back on its feet. Kamen Rider Z0, or Z0, in my personal opinion, not to confuse with the last Heisei entry. Kamen Rider J, which actually has the main lead from Kyoryu Sentai Zyuranger, which, as known over here in the States, is Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Season 1. And Shin Kamen Rider, which was a retelling of the original Kamen Rider series, but with a more horror-like, with a more horror movie vibe. But these would all fail, and it would take a couple of years before the resurgence of Kamen Rider series, Kamen Rider Kuga, for Kamen Rider to make its proper return. But that's pretty much it. So, what do you guys think? You want me to keep talking about Kamen Rider series? Let me know in the comments down below. Hit that like button and please subscribe to my channel. Sorry, I don't update often, but when I do, hit that bell icon, you'll get all the latest updates. Well, that's all for now. This is Jack Killer saying, Henshin! And see ya!